Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology Diary podcast, where we talk about everything mental health. On this episode, we'll be speaking with Jen Amos. Jen Amos is a mental health advocate. She has also been in the US military. She's engaged in entrepreneurship and she supports people of color. She's also a podcaster as well, and started a podcast in summer of 2019. This has connected her to different opportunities, both personal and professional. So she's an amazing guest, and I hope you'll get so much value from this episode. So let's tune in. Yeah, your camera is fine.
Looks okay. Okay, thank you. I was just trying to see if I could do it differently, but hello. There you go. Perfect. Okay, that's
I hope the link wasn't too stressful to get to you.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just I usually do this on my computer, but my computer's being slow, so I was just doing it on my phone right now, if that's okay with you.
Fine, it's fine.
So, but it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too. I was chatting with you online, and I wanted to just meet you. I read your profile, so I was really interested in you.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to talk about anything and everything.
Okay, great.
I'm generally an open book, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, great. We'll keep it short, just because of time, so you can get back to your next meeting.
Sure.
Okay, so can I know more about you?
So my name is Jen Amos, and I am based in America. My parents were immigrants from the Philippines, and my dad joined the U.S. military to come here. And so that's how I was born as an American. So that's a little background on me. Fast forward to today, I've been, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay, yeah. Fast forward to today, I've been self-employed for a decade now, and I've dabbled in legal services, online marketing, and now financial services. Great. I work with my husband currently. I also, and I also am a podcaster, just like you. So I am a big advocate for promoting personal narratives. I think there's something very powerful when people share their stories. I think it not only provides self-healing for the individual, but it provides affirmation, validation, and self-healing for people that can relate to your story. So I'm a big advocate of encouraging people to share their story, and podcasting is my preferred medium.
Oh, great, amazing. So can you tell me more about your experience with the U.S. military?
Yeah, so I'm what they call a Gold Star daughter. And what that means is you lost a family member while they were on active duty. And so for me, that was my dad. My dad was in the Navy, and his last ship was the USS Kitty Hawk. And they were on their way from Japan to South Korea until one day, I think it was within the first day that they were out in sea, he ended up disappearing. And so for 3 days, they sent a search crew to find him. This was back in 1998. And they actually never found his body. And even today, they don't know what happened to him. So that was over 20 years ago now, or 22 years ago now in October. And so my family and I, we were uprooted. We were stationed in Japan at the time. And that has been, that's been a very impactful experience for me for obvious reasons of losing a dad when you're only 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
And even till this day, you don't know what happened to him. But also the interesting thing is today I work with my husband, who is a veteran. Yeah. And at first I wasn't interested in getting involved in the military community again, but just kind of seeing his heart and his passion for the community, I took it as an opportunity to get involved again and kind of rediscover my story as a military child and a Gold Star daughter, and find some healing in that and sharing my story and, connecting with people in that way. So, today what we do is we provide financial services for military families who are doing career. So like about 20 plus years and over, and they're right about to transition. And
Okay.
so we focus on helping them manage their finances in a way so that they could be best prepared for their civilian life when they retire from the military. So
Okay.
that's a little bit about my background and everything.
Okay, great. So, how has this shaped your worldview about military service? Do you feel it's something? Do you find it as a big risk going to the military?
Well, absolutely. You're basically telling your friends and family that you might not come back.
Okay.
You're kind of giving up your own liberty and freedom to serve the greater good. And although that is a wonderful thing to do, it comes at a cost.
Okay.
And at first, it's interesting because I'm 32 now, and I remember in my young 20s when I was in college, my mom had encouraged me to join the military. And to be quite honest, I wish that I did. I wish that I at least served for 4 years because of the benefits you get from it. If you're not in the whole time, you still get, like your education paid for, you get extra benefits to get housing allowance. And, you just have some benefits, and you're kind of set, for the start of your young adult life where, but at that time I didn't want to do it because, for obvious reasons, I was like, well, why would I join the one thing that took my dad away?
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to.
And so, exactly. And I also saw the military in a way, I saw it as like a stable job, like a stable job. And I was like, well, I don't want to follow orders, and I don't want to be at the mercy of whatever the government tells me what to do and where to go. Like, I want to dictate my own life, my own choices. Like, I want to have more freedom in my life. And, hence why I've taken the entrepreneurial route for the last decade. So anyway, but like I said, I think if I were to do it all over again, I would have done at least 4 years, just knowing that the benefits I could have gotten, not that I was behind in life because I didn't do it, because of losing my dad, my siblings and our school is paid for. We didn't have to worry about tuition or anything, because of a benefit called Chapter 35, which means that your kids if you pass away, your kid's school essentially gets paid for. So that's how my siblings and I were able to, go to school and not come out of school with a lot of debt. So yeah, that's the only thing, there's a lot of perks, unfortunately and fortunately, of having lost a parent. But, free education was one of them for sure.
And how important is entrepreneurship to you?
It's my life. I was just thinking today that, if I go back to my childhood, I think the reason why it's always been difficult for me or unnatural for me to hold down a stable job is because we moved around so much. And I just, in a way, and then having lost my dad, I just never, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but I felt unsafe just working a job. Like I literally, I felt like, if I stay in one thing long enough, I'm going to die, and that's, I think about my dad who stayed at, the military for a long time, and we unfortunately ended up losing him. And so for me, it just felt natural and safer for me to be in business for myself, to have control of my income and my choices in my life, and to have different options. So it's a necessity for me to be an entrepreneur. And even every now and then I'll entertain the idea of a job, and I'm like, I just don't really want to report to anyone. So that's a little bit about that.
Can you tell me the acronym? Can you tell me the full meaning of POC?
Oh, people of color?
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to figure out that acronym. I thought it was point of contact. I thought it was point of contact. I didn't really know the meaning. So I'm going to ask you about it. Can you please elaborate more on that?
Yeah, it's funny how you bring that up, because I actually didn't even know about the term myself till almost less than 2 years ago. Cause when I was podcasting, Charles, I remember people would identify as POC or WOC as in woman of color. And so even I had to look into it. Like I looked it up.
I looked
and
into it.
basically what it means, yeah, basically my interpretation of POC is someone who is non-white, so someone who is not of European descent or is not of, is not like the first colonizers of America in a way.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
people who have, generally speaking, people who have been oppressed by colonizers, typically of the white, pale, or, of those European descent, Caucasian descent, however you want to identify it.
Sure.
And so a lot of times, people of color band together because even though we all have different ethnic backgrounds, like, even, you and I can be considered people of color, but
Yes,
it doesn't
exactly.
mean that I understand your struggle,
Exactly.
It's just that our struggles in a way, in the grand scheme of things, can be quite universal, and we feel a sense of oppression most of the time, not all the time. There are definitely affluent POCs out there, but for the most part, generally speaking, there's a lot of POC who have a history of oppression and colonization and everything. And so that's when I think of POC, that's what I think of.
Oh, great. That's amazing. What are your views about mental health?
What are my views on mental health?
Yeah, as in how do you see mental health? Do you think do you think we should end, do you think the stigma of mental health can be eradicated through knowledge building about various mental health illnesses? Or do you see mental health as something that is long term? Is there a point you can reach where people with mental health disorders can be accepted into the community without any bias?
Yeah. That's a loaded question, I think, because some people are lucky to have families that value mental health, but I think a lot of people of color, POC, WOC, LGBTQ plus IA, like all the non-white people,
Yeah.
I think is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
A lot of times it's considered a luxury to seek out mental health. A lot of the times it's considered like you're crazy, to seek out mental health. And when I think about my own background of my mom and my whole family, and, none of them they're in the medical field, but they're not in the mental health field, because for them, it's more about fixing the physical symptoms. Like, are you sick, or have you been fed? Are you physically protected? Do you have shelter? But when it comes to the mental stuff, it's not as recognized. And I don't think it's that my family looked down upon it. It's just that their generation at the time, it wasn't valued either. It wasn't considered a priority to manage. And so for someone like me, as a born American, being exposed to Mental Health Awareness Month and all that stuff, and also being an empath and a highly sensitive person, it took me a long time, really in my mid-20s, to realize the value of mental health. And rather than think about what other people would think about me if I were to seek it out, I just sought it out, because I thought, well, it's not serving me if I am buying into what people believe, the stigma around mental health. Really I think over the last handful of years now, I have received some form of mental health. Even now, I'm actively using mental health resources. And to me, I just see mental health as your physical health, because if you don't take care of your mental health, it shows up in your physical health, and I think that if people can just say, like, I'm sad, and get that treated, if that wasn't so stigmatized to express how you feel, because that's another thing too. I think culturally, at least in America, it's very it's just not really, you don't really get praised for talking about your feelings,
Yes, exactly.
And so, yeah, so I think it's a loaded question that you're asking, but I will say that mental health is extremely important to me. I'm very open about it. I talk about it a lot. Even this week in America, it's known as, not this week, sorry, it was like last week, it was considered Suicide Awareness Week.
Yes,
And it was all about suicide.
It.
Yeah. And so, it's all about suicide awareness. And, I have a family history of mental illness, and my dad had suicidal ideation. We don't know for sure if this is true, but we're thinking that part of the reason we're finding where my sister and I have been trying to uncover my dad's story a lot this year. And what we're finding is that my dad was depressed and he was suicidal. And it was hard for him to be in the military. It was really hard for him because he was considered a machinist mate first class. And what machinist mates do is they work at the bottom of the ship, so it's hot down there, and I can only imagine like the stress he went through, working there for almost 18 years. I've heard stories of him attempting, to hurt himself and to take his own life. And it's interesting because I had struggled with that too. And the more that I learned about his story, the more I realized that, mental illness can be handed down in your family, right?
Yeah.
And like trauma is generational. It can be handed down. And there's this good book I'm reading right now called It's Not About You, or it Didn't Start With You. The book was called It Didn't Start With You. And it talks about how, trauma gets passed down generation to generation. And so when I realized that, I think what I'm trying to say is that like mental health is also like valuing your own story and the stories that came before you, your parents and your grandparents. And it's like, if you don't seek to understand that, then you're going to be walking around always thinking that you're the problem, when it's like, no, you're not the only problem. Like this is like nurturing, like this was you inherited this trauma, and so I'm not a therapist, in any way. I want to be clear about that. I'm just sharing with you what has brought me peace in my life, and continues to bring me peace is the more I is consistently taking care of my mental health and getting educated and being transparent. Because another thing about mental health is because people stigmatize it, it's very easy for someone who needs it the most to isolate themselves and not want to share that because it's shameful. And so for me, I find it very important to be transparent, to be open about the things that I have gone through. So it's extremely important to me. And because I think that if I don't take care of my mental health, I'm also doing a disservice to my loved ones. I could be projecting my anger on them. I could be projecting my high expectations that they will never achieve, because I lost my dad and no one will ever be good enough for me because they're not like my dad. Like I could easily have been that person, but because I was able to do the hard work of getting help and unpacking that, and building community and accountability, to take care of myself, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I probably would be in very toxic relationships, or I would be the toxic person in the relationship, so it's extremely important. And I think more people, I think with the pandemic right now, cause it's a worldwide phenomena at the time of this recording. I think a lot of people are actually valuing their mental health. Like a lot of people are self-reflecting and realizing that they need to get that help. And I think mental health in many areas, at least in America, are being normalized now. And for that, I'm glad. Like, I'm so glad that I can openly talk about mild depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation. And people won't just call me crazy. People won't just say, oh my gosh, don't talk about that. It's more like, oh my gosh, I hear you. I see you. I'm here for you. Like people are more supportive, or at least that's the people I now associate with, because part of mental health too is learning who's toxic in your life and can you switch those people out, and you won't know that or realize that you need that until you get the help to show you like, hey, you deserve better. So
exactly. And your love for podcasting, how has it improved your life?
Podcasting?
Yeah, how has it improved you?
I think I love podcasting. I mean, I call myself like a baby podcaster. I started podcasting summer of last year in 2019. And I started it because at the time I was really struggling with loneliness and depression.
Okay.
My husband and I moved across America from the West Coast to the East Coast,
Hmm.
and I was essentially starting my life all over again. And the only person I could depend on was my husband and my dog at the
Okay.
time, and we had moved collectively a number of times, and so I kind of came to this conclusion that I needed to what do you call it? I came to this conclusion that I needed to build an online community, and I found podcasting as the way to do that. And so
Okay.
I've been very fortunate to, speak to people all over America and all over the world, and really just hear people's stories and hear why they do what they do. And, one, it's very validating. It makes me feel seen, to know that I could relate to people. And two, I think it's really helped me be a better communicator and a better connector and more empathetic of people and understanding of people. So it's also given me opportunities, professional opportunities,
Great. Great.
all within a year. So I'm extremely grateful for what I've had so far and what I continue to do. And I'm going to try to podcast for as long as it makes sense.
Okay.
But
Great.
it's great, and
Great.
I think everyone should give it a shot, especially if they're trying to find their voice. You don't have to have your voice already. There's a quote that I really love that says, "The only way to find your voice is to use it." And podcasting is a great medium to practice your voice.
Great. Exactly. I agree with you. So your husband, do you have kids?
No, we don't. We've been together for 4 years, and I don't think we're gonna have kids. I'm not sure yet. It's
Okay.
not part of the current plans.
Okay. 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 Great. So what three things you want to remember for?
Three things I want to be remembered for.
Yeah, if you leave the world today.
I think I think the biggest thing I want to be remembered for is, like, it's not really three, it's more like one.
Okay.
But I think I want to be remembered for how I made people feel
Okay.
when they connected with me. I want them to feel seen, validated, heard, loved. Like they walk away feeling like they could be a better version of themselves.
Okay.
That's very important to me. I think one thing that my dad, I wish, if there's anything I wish, and I was too young to understand this at the time, I wish that he was more transparent about needing help. When he first attempted, he was taken into counseling because he had to, because they found him. They found that he attempted, and I just kind of wish that he still sought out counseling. And in losing him, because people don't realize the impact of taking your life. People think, oh, I'm going to take my life so that I'm not a burden to anyone else. But you really leave this ripple effect of grief and, a lot of questions and a lot of, just a lot of mixed feelings and unsolved, mysteries that, the loved ones you leave behind end up, living with for the rest of their lives. And so one thing that I feel like my dad took away from me for taking his life, if that's true, if he actually did that, is that he took away that emotional support, that emotional availability. He really loved me. Like, he treated me like his princess, from what I remember. And he always gave me his undivided attention. He always made me feel seen and heard and loved and cared for. And when I lost him, I think I spent the rest of my life trying to find that. And part of me wanting to finding that is realizing that I need to provide that first. I need to be that example, to myself, like providing that emotional availability to myself and therefore for other people. And so for me, I think the one thing that I hope, when I leave, I hope what my legacy is one, all the podcast shows that I've done where people can hear my voice and hear my love and my compassion for people. But two, which is really the biggest thing, which is the first thing I really mentioned, is to feel good about the fact that they had a chance to chat with me. And in the short, whether we were friends for a long time or we met for the first time, I hope that people feel a sense of validation in themselves and their story, because that's really the main thing I try to do with people, is remind them that they're special, remind them that they're worthy, and remind them that their story matters. So I'm only giving you two. I can't think of a third one. I hope that's okay.
No problem. No problem. Great. So where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, well, right now, I would say right now I'm really active on Instagram. I have two accounts. My professional account is Jen Amos Creates. So like creates as in you're creating something. So Jen Amos is spelled JenAmos, and then creates CREATES. Or you could go to my personal account, which is the Jen Amos. That's TheJenAmos. I'm also active on Twitter, which is the same username, the Jen Amos, and also Facebook, the Jen. Yeah, so Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the Jen Amos.
Jen Amos.
And then,
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Jen Amos, right?
Sorry?
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Jen Amos.
It's the, so if you look up the username, it's THE. So
THE. Oh, okay. Great.
So that's how you'll find me. If you're looking for facebook.com/the Jen Amos, twitter.com/the Jen Amos, and Instagram. And on LinkedIn, you just have to search Jen Amos, and then you can find me on there.
Okay, great. I'd like to also ask, the final question I want to ask is, what do you feel the world needs right now, in spite of the COVID pandemic? What do you think the world needs right now?
Yeah. I think the world needs a sense of community. I think this has been a time to really reconnect with your family and your loved ones and your friends and check in with one another. I think mental health is extremely important right now because, even though the COVID, deaths are supposedly rising, I think that the numbers aren't as big as other things like car accidents and suicide and domestic violence. But either way, I think now is a very important time to check in with each other, because we are forced to practice social distancing. It's very easy for us as individuals to want to isolate ourselves and not want to tell people how we're really feeling. Exactly. And so I think it's up to us as individuals to reach out to our loved ones and not say like, hey, is there anything wrong? Just say, hey, I just want to check in. I think we need more people to just do that, to just check in with their loved ones and their friends, or maybe someone they haven't been in touch with in a while, and say, hey, I was thinking about you today, and I thought I would check in. How's it going? Exactly. That itself makes a whole world of difference. I do that to people all the time. Like whenever I think of a friend, I text them. I say, hey, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. And I feel like, and in doing that, I feel like I have received good karma from that, because my friends and loved ones do the same for me, which is what I absolutely appreciate. So in the times when I'm going through a hard time, and then I get a text from someone, it really helps. It's like, oh, wow, like someone thought about me today. So I think that's what the world needs right now, is connection and community with one another. Even though we're told to be apart from each other, physically apart, there are still many ways, like technology and the internet, to stay connected. Great.
It was really nice talking with you, Jen. Can we do this another time?
Yeah, you too, Charles. Sorry?
Can we do this another time?
Yeah, I would be happy to. I'm an open book, so I'm always happy to jump on and share my perspective on mental health or whatever you think I could be good for your show.
Great. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, have a nice day.
You too. Take care, Charles. Oh, I do have a question. When will this episode be out? I'm just curious.
I will do it this week. Thank you all for listening to this episode. Speaking with Jen Amos was really awesome, and she's a very brilliant guest. Do well to leave a review on this podcast. It's really helped a lot. So till next time, be legendary.